Okay, hey there everybody. So in this video we're going to, I'm going to show you how to use the St. Louis Federal Reserve Economic Database site. I'm going to walk you through a couple of the really cool functions, data functions that are possible there. But before we hop into that, two things. First, I encourage you to maybe open up a second window and to work through this exercise on your own, just because the only way you're going to remember how to do this is if you do it once or twice yourself. And then second, please note that this video actually accompanies a couple other shorter videos where I show you how to use a few other really useful websites for finding economic data. I'll put those links to those videos in the description below. Okay, so let's hop right into this. All these websites, or the ones we do today, are they're commonly used by macroeconomists, microeconomists too, by economists of all stripes. It can't be overstated how useful these are. And all this data is free to the public, and as you'll see in just a moment, it's very easily accessible. So I would encourage you. It's just as easy to look up economic data as it is to get a bunch of rubbish economic argument from some BuzzFeed article or something like that. So it's worth your time and society's time to just go look up the right data. All right, thanks for doing that, everybody. All right, so the first of these, move me back out of the way up there. Okay, so the first of these is maybe, well, in my opinion, the best of all of them, it's not the most user-friendly of all the sites that we'll go through today, but it's cool, I think. Okay, and this is the Federal Reserve Economic Database, or what's known as the FRED site. Okay, so you can find almost anything you would be looking for there, because what this is a clearinghouse website. So what the FRED site does is it takes data from hundreds, maybe thousands of other sources. I honestly don't recall, but a lot, and compiles them in one place that's searchable, and where you can actually, well, I'll show you in a few seconds, you can combine the data from different places. Following the steps here, let's try to find some unemployment data. And so if you're following along on this, hit the link, open that up in a new window so you can follow along, and then walk through these steps here. So in the search box will be up in the upper right hand corner. You'll see a little magnifying glass, search on it once you get to the FRED site, and then we're going to click through, and hopefully if you've done that, you'll see something like this. Now yours, this I believe is through 2019 as I recall, so your data may include a few more months. But here is the unemployment rate dating back to essentially the end of the Second World War. Now, a few things about the FRED site. When the FRED site shows you graphs like this, those dark vertical bars represent recessionary periods. So the thick dark bar right there, right, that's the Great Recession, or the financial crisis of about 10 years ago. Other things that's really nice about this FRED site is you'll notice at the bottom of the graph, down there, it gives you the source, Bureau of Labor Statistics in this case. And if you click below, or if you look even below this graph where you're seeing on your page, right, it gives you more information about the data that you're looking at. Okay, so here, talk about some of this, right? Source of the data, recessions, specific data. So if you hover over the graph, right, so if you, on your other window, take a look and hover over the data, and you'll see that it gives you, for example, Q3 1995 unemployment data. Okay, if you look in the upper right hand corner, so if you're following along on this, look in the upper right hand corner, and you'll see that you can download this into an Excel spreadsheet or similar, right? You can download the graph as I believe is either a JPEG or a PNG. If you put it in a variety of sources, for example, it's how it's in this presentation, right, as I downloaded it into PowerPoint. And then, of course, you can also, in the lower right-hand section, you'll see that this can be shared to various social media, right? So if you for sure it'll make you really cool and popular with all your friends if you share various economic data to your Twitter account or your Facebook account. But you can easily do it. Okay. You can also change the data range. So just above the graph, right, you'll see there's a data range. You can click on that and change it. You don't need to go all the way back to the 1940s. You can change that first box on the left to 2000, which is what we're going to do right here. Okay. And if you do that, you change that data range, as we just said, you should see that now we've just have data from 2020 forward, right, through essentially about 6 months ago. You should see data basically, through a few months ago. Okay. All right. So now let's start doing some more serious work here. I'm going to make me a little smaller because it's important you be able to read that. Okay. All right. So what we want to do now is do some more serious editing in the Fred site to give you a flavor of what's possible here. We've really only just scratched the surface. So click the Edit Graph button. Okay, you should see that in the upper right, just above where you saw the download function a moment ago. And that should open up a panel from the right-hand side of your screen. And you want to click on Add a Line at the top. Okay, it's one of three possibilities that you should be seeing there. And then I would like you to try to enter in CPI inflation, right? So just type that into that box, and click the first data series that comes up. You should get several options. The CPI inflation should be the first one, okay? And then click Add Data Series, okay? All right, wonderful. So what we see here is now we have two lines, right? If you look at the top of the graph, the blue line is now labeled as civilian unemployment rate, and the red line is consumer price index data, right? We have both of those graphed on there, and right, it shows us the source for both of those. It gives us a nice link for that. So it's cool, right? So we can combine different data series very easily. So let's keep going. So let's keep working on this, right? So let's take this another step, right? So let's click again on Edit Graph, and then let's click on Edit Line 2, okay? And then change so this should open up another little box, right? And change the units to percent change, okay? And when you do that, you should see something like this, okay? So what we're now looking at is we're looking at changes in unemployment rates and changes in prices, right? Or if we wanted to be less techie, we're looking at variations in unemployment and in variations in prices, right? Now the reason why I chose this as our little exercise is nothing particularly deep, right? But it does illustrate that employment in general is more volatile than prices, right? Which is, maybe a little strange because we certainly hear a lot more about price volatility than employment volatility. But yet we can see here that is certainly not the case, nor has it been the case since the end of World War II for a long time in U.S. economic history. So here, it's really easy, right? So we've been working on this for just a few minutes here. It's really easy to sort of get to the truth of so many statements about the economy that one finds in the popular press, which 19 times out of 20 is maybe going to regret saying this, but it's nonsense, okay? It's there to titillate you. It's there to make you feel upset about something, or make you really to continue reading and maybe even clicking on the article, the various links, okay? The truth of sort of the state of the economy is very easy to uncover, and one really doesn't need more than a rudimentary understanding of economics to make a whole lot of sense of it, okay? All right, so let's continue. There's virtually, as I said, there's virtually no limit to what you can do here with this. You can write formulas, right? So you could say divide GDP by population to get per capita GDP, right? You could So in other words, you can take your two equations or your two data series, right, that we just saw a moment ago, and then combine them using specific formulas. So we could divide one by the other, so on and so forth. All right, so the second place I'd like to take you today is the BEA, right? So BEA.gov. This is the Bureau of Economic Analysis. You're going to notice that a lot of the data at the FRED site is from the BEA. So the BEA is, they're responsible for putting all this data together. Their site is a little more slick than the FRED site. It has some cool features, right? But it isn't as broad as the FRED site. So let's work through this, right? So top of the page, tools, click interact data. This is in the bar near the top of the page, right? You'll see tools, and then you'll see interactive data, and then you're going to click on GDP and personal income. Begin using the data, right? It gives you all these like warnings, like, are you sure you want to use a data type? Yeah, just okay. And you can see the rest of the instructions there, right? Okay. And what we get is we should get something about like this, although yours is going to contain another year roughly of data here, okay? So rather than 16, it's going to be 17, 18, 19, okay? And then you can see the breakdown of all of that, of course, below, right? And so here's personal income, its sources. With all these data tables, each level of indentation is another degree of detail. So, for example, private industries, line 4, and government 5, sum to line 3, okay? All right, so each level of indentation sums to the next level of indentation above it. At the BEA site, click modify, right? Follow the instructions here. Pause. Okay. And you end up with something like this. Now, here we have a nice little graph, right? You can hover on any of those dots, right, and get the data for that particular year. Of course, what do we see here, right? We see a general rise in personal income, excepting the recession years of 10 years ago. And of course, looking at this in late 2020, you're going to see a drop here too with the whole COVID stuff going on. So when you hear that folks say, well, the economy really isn't growing, well, that's just wrong. It's clear. Now you may say, well, I'm not getting richer. Well, that's different from the economy's not growing, right? That just means you're not getting a share of that economic growth, which is an entirely different thing. Okay. All right. So again, there's almost no limits to this, right? So try taking that graph, right, and clicking on downloading and then dump it down into a Word document or a PowerPoint like this, like I've done. This is way better. So if you're doing assignments for an economics class or writing a paper, even for like a history class, or you're a journalism student or something like that, giving your readers a visual of this economic data, as well as using the most reliable sources, is the way to do it. Okay. All right. Finally, we'll take a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that's bls.gov. It's a little harder to use than the other two. Okay, so you're going to see something that looks like this, right? And this is for my little MSA here, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. We're about 80 miles east of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we can kind of see what the local economy looks like, who are the big employers and who are not. Again, this is an area where conventional wisdom is extremely misleading. Here in Wisconsin, we continually debate the mining industry and mining jobs. Boy, look at that data. It's almost an inconsequential portion of our economy around here. But yet it just gets a huge amount of political attention for whatever reason. While other much larger sectors, manufacturing, government for that matter, go largely ignored. Okay, so you can get older data by clicking on the chart, the little chart picture there, icon, and of course you can find data for states and regions and so on and so forth at the BLS site too. Okay. So finally, the last one, this is going a little long. I apologize, but of course there's census, right? And the census, in particular, the business census has loads and loads of data. We'll talk about that. It needs more time, right? So we'll leave it there today. Thanks very much, everybody. Hope this has been useful. See you next time. Bye.